how's it going? Thank you for clicking on today's video. It really means a lot to me. Today's video is going to be a really special episode. I'm going to be sharing with you a poem that I wrote last year, and the original idea behind this poem was to turn it into a stop motion animation. And that's still kind of the idea. I would still love to do that. The only thing holding me back is the budget. It would be rather expensive. So I decided instead I'm just going to share the poem so I can relay this story that means a lot to me to my viewers, you, the one watching this. Now, it's just going to be me talking, so feel free to have this playing in the background while you're doing something, or, listen to it podcast style, or however works best for you. But without further ado, let's get into it. This poem is called A Child in Color. There once was a girl named Leonora who loved nothing more than to create. She would sit in her room despite the eerie gloom and conjure tales of fate. Every time she had a story to tell, she would bring it to her mother and father, but they would push her aside with their busy-abouts and tell her to never even bother. So over time, as Leonora grew, her collections of stories became piles of dust. There's got to be a way to gain my mother's and father's love, she would say. There absolutely must. She gathered her bags, her clothes, and her very few belongings, and without any goodbye, she set out to find the satisfaction for which her parents were longing. The rain fell lightly upon her silky black hair as she searched for a sign or someone to notice she was there. She looked under bridges or out in meadows of vast, and she silently wondered how long she could possibly last. Out there alone, without anyone noticing, there was a whispering wonder if there was anything more to see. But just as she was ready to embark on a long journey back, someone approached her, wearing everything but black. She turned in amazement to such wondrous color, only to ask what he could possibly want to tell her. "My name is Hypnosis," the color man said, "and I see much talent behind this hideous dread. So if you care to, follow me. I'll take you to a place where you can truly be free." She nodded her head with an internal smile. No one would notice if she was gone for a while. Yes, he noticed her many talents with but a glance. She might as well give this colorful man a chance. For miles and miles they walked together, but all conversations Hypnosis had severed, until one day they finally arrived at a magical land which seemed too much deprived. Of what, Leonora had not a clue. She wouldn't utter a word, and she would do what she's been asked to do. Hypnosis was clear with his intentions for her. He wanted her to work. Exactly why, she wasn't sure. His magical wonderland was filled with trees, each evenly spaced in groups of threes. He had gorgeous rivers which flowed in abundance, but they ran uphill, which she found rather redundant. He told her she was free here as long as she had use. If she didn't meet his expectations, he presented the noose. She felt as trapped as a mouse between two paws. How could a place be filled with as much pain as it had awe? Hypnosis was an eye, always watching the motions, but he couldn't be bothered because he loved drinking his potions. He could sit back and watch as his slaves did the work and compliment his choice of servants. What a wonderful jerk. One fateful day, Leonora had questions she needed answered. She approached the colorful man with eyes as big as moons and said, "May I ask, sir?" Hypnosis knew she was under his spell. These questions couldn't be anything detrimental to his shell. "Why, of course, my dear, as long as they're polite. I wouldn't want to have one less servant tonight." Leonora continued, "Why must the water flow uphill? And why are the trees so evenly spaced? Do you have secrets to spill?" Hypnosis was shocked. How dare she test? So he answered her questions, hoping she would no longer mess. "You see, girl, if we let the water flow down, it will never come back, and everyone at the bottom would drown. The trees are divided so to look neat and nice. Now get back to work. Don't make me ask you twice." So she picked up her feet, and she did just that. To him she wanted to prove she wasn't a brat. Day after day he looked down upon her, each hour seeming to get longer and longer. He was now a monster without any form, a mess of eyes, teeth, and limbs no longer adorned, a hovering threat, never accepting rest. Leonora was torn with terrible stress, but late one night, as she lay down to sleep, she was kept awake by a terrible scream. It came from the dark, somewhere out there afar. The scream of a child cut so deep it left a terrible scar. With curiosity flourishing as it almost never had before, she set out in the woods looking to uncover the horror. As she drew nearer, the scream grew louder. She wanted to get as close as the child allowed her. But when the babe came into view, she resisted the urge to kneel down and puke. It was decrepit and shriveled and altogether ghastly. A child that was dead, but it hadn't died fastly. It screamed in pain and torment and fear. It had been left here forgotten year after year. Leonora was panicked, not knowing what to do. She asked the child to stop so she could think this through. But as she pleaded, the child crawled closer. Its limbs all tangled, she had never seen something painfully slower. She was frozen in fear of what the child could have wanted. Its glazed over eyes were sorrowfully haunted. When the child reached her, screaming louder with pain, she offered her hand to help show it the way. Something happened when Leonora touched the hand of the babe. A flood of memories washed her away. Memories of stories that she used to tell. Creativity and love that were no longer around. A child had died, neglected by her. A child inside, the mind of a blur. When she looked down at the hand she held, it wasn't a babe's, it was hers, or so she felt. For the withering ghost of her younger self was no more cared for than the stories left on her shelf. She was finally aware of what she was so desperately missing. Approval of self she was no longer dismissing. Leonora decided she would never go back to hypnosis. She couldn't care less for his useless diagnosis. She was all she ever needed, she truly believed. Never had she ever felt so relieved. Now one with the child, she was never alone. Complete and comfortable, her mind was her home. I really appreciate you sitting there and listening to that story. It came about in a time where I felt that my inner child had completely shriveled away and died, and this poem really helped me realize that there's no such thing as the inner child being lost forever. It really just needs the tender love and care that any other child needs. When you provide your true self with that attention and love that oftentimes I think we all forget to show it, it becomes a very healing process. Hypnosis, the color man in the story, is representative of a day-to-day job and how it can sometimes feel like it's taking away everything and that you don't really have much time left over when your workday is finished to show yourself some self-love and some self-care and really nurture that inner child who, in my opinion, is your true self. That your inner child is where your soul sits, and it's something that Leonora didn't realize in the poem. As soon as she fell into the arms of hypnosis, all of the stories and tales that she created as a child were kind of lost in this flood of attention she was getting from this man who happened to almost pretend to notice her in a way. So yeah, this is just something that I really wanted to share. And again, thank you so much to anybody who's made it this far in the video. It really means the world to me that you listen to this poem. Anyway, that is going to be it for today. We will definitely catch you in the next one.